Hello everybody. So have you ever had a problem with a coloring book page where your colored pencils just don't want to lay down on the paper? No matter how many layers, you just can't get that vibrant color that you want. Well, I have run into that problem. And it's in this book, Circle of Life. My printing is the version printed in China, and it's a very smooth paper. There's like no texture. It's not super thin like the Create Space paper, but it's just super smooth, and I've had other colored pencil friends that have a hard time with some colored pencils in this paper. So I went about to figure out how I can fix this problem. And I figured it out. Yay! Took some skills from my art background, and what you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to get yourself some gesso. So this is a product used in painting primarily, where it primes your surface. It adds tooth to it. So there's the acrylic polymer in here, but then there's also some grit. So I think in this particular brand there's like sand in there, so it's very gritty. And this version you can buy it usually in white, but I didn't want to cover up the lines, so I do have this clear gesso. So it's clear, transparent, doesn't cover anything up, just adds that little bit of texture that you need. So we are going to use that. But first, I'm going to show you what it looks like before I do that. So on this side, it's going to be without it, and this side's going to be with it. So I'm going to zoom on into this little section here, and we'll get started. All right, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to need a brush. I prefer to use something a little flatter. Paintbrush like so. I chose the smaller version because I'm doing a small spot, but I use a bigger brush for a bigger spot. And don't mind my messy palette. This is my gesso palette, so just let it dry on there when it's done. And so you'll want to pour out just a little teeny bit. You don't need a whole lot. I'm probably not even going to use half that, but and then you'll want some water in a water container to rinse out your brush when you're done. And then it's very important when you are done to wash your brush with soap and water. You don't want to let this stuff dry on the brush. It will ruin it. So you'll want to wash it right away with soap and water. Alright, so let's apply the gesso. So I just get some on my brush, and then we're just going to apply a very light layer over the page. And apparently I had So that's what you do. You apply a light layer over the page. You see that it's not covering any of the lines. I don't know if you can see in the camera real well that it's got a gritty tooth to it, but it does. And you just gotta let that sit and dry. For a small space like this, I will let it dry for about a half an hour. But if you're doing a large page, I would let that dry for a day. So like maybe the night before you want to color a page, just go ahead and gesso the page and then let it dry, and you can go into another book and color that night while you're letting the other one dry. So I'm gonna stop the video now, let this dry, and I'll come back. Alright, so we've let this dry. It's been drying, I would say let it dry for about a half an hour, but I've been letting it dry for probably about an hour and a half. Went and had dinner, so. But you can hear it. So here's the side without the gesso. It's very smooth. Can't hardly even hear me touching the paper. Then you feel this side, and you can actually hear it. It's kind of got a sandpapery feel to it, but it's going to give your paper that tooth and texture that it needs. So now we're going to test it out. So I picked out 3 colors for the balloons here. Let's see. Alright, so we're just going to go in on the side without the gesso, just for comparison's sake. And I'm not going to do any shading or anything like that. Just going in and putting some color down. And I'm using medium pressure because I'm just trying to be a little quicker about it. And it's kind of weird. I was struggling with these ones down there, but it seems like these combo colors aren't doing as bad as I've seen other ones. But now we're going to go into the gesso side. And I'm going to lay that color down. And you can definitely see the rough texture compared to the other side. Actually, I think I kind of put this load of gesso down a little too thick compared to when I was first testing it out. So I would go with a thinner coat than what I did here. But I mean, you can already see color difference. It's definitely grabbing way more pigment. But one thing to keep in mind is because it is adding such a rough texture, you will go through your pencil a little bit quicker than before, because this is already getting dull. And so you can see here that the color payoff between that one without the gesso and this one with the gesso is huge. Like, that's so much brighter. And you have to work so much harder to get any sort of color payoff on this side. And even then, like, it's nowhere near. Yeah, it's like nowhere near as thick and strong. There, so I put in some extra coats on that one, and yeah, it's still very, very different. And in some cases, you know, you might want this in your page, a lighter, more subtle variation. But if you're looking for that bright color and your page is giving you trouble, then get yourself a bottle of clear gesso and put a light layer on your page, and that will bring out that vibrancy in your color and give your page a little bit more tooth. I'll leave a link in the description below for the gesso that I use. Other than that, I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, give the video a like. Otherwise, I will talk to y'all later, and hoping you're having a wonderful day, evening, wherever you're at. Sending you lots and lots of love. Bye.